Hi, it's me again, Ben. And last time, I came so close to being whooped by our principal. Yeah, he still hasn't found out yet that all three of his daughters are crushing on me. Hard. And also that I'm dating them. But our town was small and our school was even smaller. All it would take was for one person to catch us and talk. And so I asked the girls to tone it down on the public displays of attention when we were out. They didn't like that at first, but when I explained that I didn't want their dad to bust into my room and beat me to a pulp, they eventually agreed. I was stressed all the time. I was doing better in school because I was spending less time skipping classes. But all the schoolwork, the pressure to graduate on time, the fact that I was dating 3 different girls, and my fear of their father finally took its toll on me. One day, as I was having lunch with Toby and Phil, I just collapsed. Just passed out. Right there. And then on the table. They said I just conked out, and my face slammed onto the plate of hamburger helper that I hadn't even touched. I was in the infirmary when I woke up. And there they were. Sandy, Jill, and Maeve, all cuddled up with me on the infirmary bed. I was so on edge that I jumped out of bed as if I'd just found a massive cockroach crawling under the covers. What are you doing? I exclaimed. Shh, said Maeve. Come back to the bed, whined Sandy. The nurse said you need to rest. You're gonna hurt yourself, admonished Jill. But no matter how pretty they were, the last thing I wanted to do was get found hanging out with all 3 of Principal Briggs' daughters in the same bed. What if someone sees us? I hear Nurse Joy has a big mouth, I said in the loudest whisper I could manage. Oh, shush, said Sandy. That's mean. Relax. Nurse Joy's chill. We told her to go get herself a coffee so she won't be back here for a while. Come, said Maeve, patting the space beside her on the bed. Come back here. I don't know if it was the surprise of the situation or the fact that I hadn't eaten in 2 days due to all the stress I'd been going through. But as I tried to take a step towards the bed, I felt my head spin. Suddenly, everything was dark, but I could still feel how my legs began to give in. And then I was home. Hey, you. I heard my stepsister's voice in my ear before I blinked my eyes open. I looked around. I saw my desk, the sunset from my window, and my posters. And then I noticed how close my stepsister's face was to my face. It almost gave me a heart attack. I jumped away, but she held me down. Hey, you, I said awkwardly. Why are you so close? I just like watching you sleep, she said. You look so peaceful. So unworried. That sounded weird. I imagine it sounded strange coming from anyone. But even so when it came from my stepsister. First, 'cause his dad married my mom. And second, 'cause she never really gave me any kind of particular attention. Apart from pulling pranks on me and calling me dork. So I told her, You're weird. You're weird, she said back. The smile on Yana's face began to fade. And then I saw tears welling up in her eyes. Well, that was a sudden turn of events, I thought. Hey, I said. What's wrong? She scratched the back of her head and looked away. She spent a long while just sitting there, avoiding having to look at me, and opening and closing her mouth as if she wasn't sure how to say what she was trying to tell me. Wow, you can't even look at me, huh? Is my face that ugly? I said with a nervous laugh. It was a weak, very weak attempt at lightening the situation. And suddenly, Yana began to cry. Yana sniffed. She said, when you fainted again, they had to take you to the hospital and I did not like where Yana was headed. But I just wanted her to get it over with. Spit it out! I yelled in frustration. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is hard, she sputtered. I felt bad that I was short with Yana. She was a pain most of the time, but she was never mean, and she definitely didn't deserve to be yelled at. So I apologized. Before I could finish saying sorry, she lunged at me and hugged me so tight, I felt air escape my lungs. The doctor, they found out you have leukemia. She trailed off and began sobbing into my shoulder. They wanted you to stay at the hospital, but I told them I was taking you home. I didn't want you to wake up in that awful place. I'm going to make sure you get the best doctors in the country. I didn't know what to say. I guess hearing it just made me feel numb. It wasn't as if I didn't know it was a possibility. The illness wasn't hereditary, but it was always a possibility that the risk factors were there for me to be more likely to have it. My mom got diagnosed when she was pregnant with me, and she died of it a couple of years ago. They said it was very rare for it to be passed down, but it was possible. And it was also possible to inherit the genetic abnormalities that led to having leukemia. I guess I was just unlucky. My sister did not let me go that night. She stayed in the room with me until she fell asleep in the armchair beside my bed. I lay awake, staring at my ceiling with tears running down my face. I couldn't even begin to process it. That I might just go the same way Mom did. I must have eventually dozed off, because when I woke up, it was bright and sunny. My sister wasn't there anymore, but when I was about to pull myself up to get some breakfast, she burst into the room with a huge luggage in tow. "Oh, good. You're up. Help me pack," she said. I was still groggy, so I had no ability to question what she said or ask why. So, I did. A limousine picked us up, and she took me to a hangar not too far from our house. A chartered jet was waiting for us as we got out of the car. I still had no idea what was happening. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention, my stepsister's rich. As in, like, rich. As in, a billionaire with a capital B. She'd struck it big in the art world. Back when it was just her and my stepdad, she started doing graffiti as a way to rebel. But then, her art got recognized. Soon, she was doing murals for international companies. Her fame took off. Then, she used her status to launch her own business. She sold shirts and other merch with her artwork on them. I think just a month before my diagnosis, a painting she did sold for about, $4 million. But despite all that, she still lived with us and lived her life normally. This was really the first time I'd ever seen her spend a huge amount of money. The plane she chartered took us to an island in the Philippines called Coron. First, we went to see the sights. The otherworldly lagoons of azure and turquoise waters, the likes of which I'd never have believed existed if I didn't see it with my own eyes. The jagged limestone cliffs that seemed to burst out of nowhere from the depths of the sea, and the fine, blindingly white sand beaches. When we sat down for lunch in one of the most picturesque seaside restaurants I'd ever seen, I finally asked her why we were here. "Just this once," she said. "Just this once. I want you to have everything you ever wanted, to experience all the good things about life. And then, when we get home, we'll fight this disease. I'll fight it with you, okay? I promise." Oh, that made me tear up. She wanted me to have an awesome time before I had to go through what my mom did. That was the best thing anyone had ever done for me. So I did my best to put on a smile. I wanted to enjoy everything she had planned without thinking about other stuff. I'd even forgotten that I had 3 girlfriends waiting for me at home. Everything else seemed insignificant. All that mattered was the present. So, I had as much fun as I possibly could have. She took us to a private island she'd rented. We stayed and lofted there for about a week. We snorkeled, went ziplining, and lounged in the tropical sun as we sipped on endless glasses of sublime mango smoothies. After we'd had enough of the beach, we went north of the country to the cold mountain of Ifugao. She hired a helicopter to fly us over the 2,000-year-old rice terraces. And then we landed in a tribal village where the country's oldest traditional tattoo artist lived. Yana wanted to get a picture with her idol. She always gushed whenever she would talk about her. And when we met her, Yana whispered to me that she wanted to fight as hard as that old lady did so we could grow up to be 102 years old just like her. After that, she flew me to Japan. We visited Mount Fuji. We shopped for toys and clothes and gadgets till our feet hurt. Then, we went to Shibuya. And at that insanely busy intersection, she pulled me through the bustling crowd and guided me to the middle of it where no one was walking. And then, she took my hand and held it tight. I looked up and around me. The city throbbed with life. People walked as if their destinations would disappear if they didn't rush to them. Neon lights glowed and gave the night an ethereal glow. And all around us, the hum, the breath, the constant pulse of Tokyo made me feel alive. After a long night's rest and a highly unusual breakfast of an omasake that Yana requested to be open early for us, we flew to France. Not Paris, but a tiny village called Saint Martin de Ré. Coming from the hustle and bustle of Tokyo, the charming, quiet, centuries-old town was the perfect way to end our vacation. We ate at the best restaurants the island could offer, and sat by the water for hours doing nothing but people watching. On our last night, she kissed me, and I kissed her back. And even though I knew I had girlfriends waiting for me, something about Yana just made me feel safe and loved. The problem was, of course, she's my stepsister. We jetted back home. We didn't talk the whole way back. She spent the whole flight staring out of her window, and I pretended to be asleep. I wanted to tell her that I loved her, but what consequences would that entail? Even more than the fact that I was also dating 3 sisters. I couldn't even admit that to her. The moment we landed, she took me to the best hospital in the country. I started treatment, and it's been endlessly grueling. My doctors are doing their best, though. I'm starting to feel better than before, but I've got a long ways to go. Wish me luck.